Okay, thanks a lot for attending today's session. Welcome so much to today's talk about do you think you know automation? So we're going to dive a little bit into what automation is and look closer into it. And briefly about us. So I'm Terje. So I've been working with data automation for around 17 years and with Expert BI. So yeah. And Anja.
My name is Anja. Welcome, everybody. I have over 15 years of data warehouse and data prep experience. I'm also one of the co-founders of the data automation tool Expert BI. So let's start looking at the basics. It's always good to start with the basics, right? So we'll start looking at the layers of a data platform. We dive right into it. You have the ingest layer, you have the storage layer, you have the transform layer, and the serve layer. And this drawing is technology independent, right? It doesn't even matter, are you on-prem or cloud? This architecture will work.
Right, and this looks quite simple, right? So it should be just getting started and building the platform.
Right.
So looking at some of the components that we really have to consider when building a data platform, one of the first steps is like thinking about the architecture. How's this solution going to look like?
And then we're looking at design. You have architecture, then you have design. Design is, do you want to have dimensional modeling, data vault, data lake, data warehouse? There's a lot of things to think about.
Right. And what kind of competencies does your team need? Like in terms of, if you need data vault modeling, you need other kind of modeling techniques, other kind of technologies, and all kinds of different things you have to consider.
And how many people? I mean, do you have the people? Do they have the right skills? Do you want to hire people? How many people in each area? Some architecture people? There's a lot of things.
And then coming to the conference here today, you may have been walking around the venue and seeing how many different tools that could potentially help you do the job. And that's also a challenge. Which tool do you need and how to make it as simple as possible?
Right. And catalog. Everybody's talking about catalogs now. We even talk about AI in catalogs, right? You should think about this from the beginning, from you start designing your solution.
Right. And then there's a lot of different storage technology options, such as if you want to have like a database or highly scalable database or kind of data lake technology, and lots of different options.
And master data. I mean, I feel almost nobody's talking about master data anymore, but it's still as relevant as it's always been. And you have to keep it in mind if you want to integrate data from different systems, right?
Yeah, and then you have metadata, which is really the one of the empowering things you need if you want to consider data mesh or data fabric, and also getting the documentation in place and understanding the context and meaning of the data.
Right. And then you have your analytics team. How do they want their data? Do they want it in Parquet files? Do they want it in a database? That is also something you should consider when building your platform and how the consumers want data.
Right. And then the question then remains, are there some missing pieces here in this puzzle? So
let's see. So how specialized, when you're looking at all of those puzzle pieces, how specialized does your data team need to be? How many people do you need and with what skills? So we're going to do a metaphor here, because I know Terje, he loves cars. You also go to the track sometimes to do some amateur racing, right?
Right.
So this car, wouldn't that be great?
Well, this is too specialized for my kind of skill level, and this is really, super advanced vehicle and method and tool for a specific kind of thing. And I need something more.
Could you even start it?
Well, probably not. And I think this is really what I need to do is to also drive a lot on normal roads, and I need a more generic thing.
Yep.
And Anja is running a lot, and if you want to do a marathon, Anja, wouldn't this be like the perfect shoe for you, right, to get started?
To get started, well, I normally do like 1 or 2 Ks and I do off-road. So I think this shoe is so specialized. It would break my feet, my ankles, my hips, my muscles. I think if you run a marathon in sub 2.5 hours, maybe you could use it, right? But it's far too specialized for me. So what is the metaphor here? So what if also in analytics, you could have a tool that doesn't require you to have those specialized skills for those far out scenarios that you're looking at? What if I don't have to think about all of these pieces, like the architecture, like we talked about? Is there a missing piece here in this puzzle that can help me?
Yes, and I think that is kind of the cue today. So the missing piece is really all about automation. So if you look at the puzzle, what automation really helps you do is to make the puzzle easier to navigate. And we have colored some of the different puzzle pieces here, like some of the things are incorporated in the software. So about what kind of competencies you need, what kind of tools that you should start with, catalogs, master data, and lots of different other functionality components. And also, there's a lot of flexibility in different directions, such as what kind of architecture should you build, what kind of design should you have, and also storage technology and so on. And the clue is, if you can postpone some of the key decisions to a later stage, you can potentially optimize and both price performance, but also according to what kind of business cases and challenges you're going to solve. So this is really where automation comes in, and it really is metadata where you can work on a higher level of abstraction. So you abstract away some of the complexities and some of the details of the solution. So you can change those things later without having to rewrite code.
And it also means you don't have to be that specialized, right?
Right. So you can be a more generic team, focus more on the output and the throughput, and then have the maximum kind of productivity for your team. Being able to change faster. We also look at the robustness of the overall solution and risk reduction, such as documentation, for instance.
Yeah. And why does this make us kind of start faster? How does it make us start faster than that big other puzzle with all the colors in it?
Right. I think it's a very good question. So guiding the developers along a path where you have the right level of flexibility is really what speeds up the process and makes it much, much easier to get started. But then again, Anja, a lot of people here at this venue are talking about automation. And is all automation the same?
Yeah, we get that question a lot. Like automation, what do you actually mean? What is automation? So when we talk about automation, we have defined 4 maturity levels of automation. So the first one is where you actually just deliver ad hoc data analytics, ad hoc data reporting. It can be anything from copy-paste from different source systems into Excel and then have your 20 sheets in Excel with a VLOOKUP going through all your logic, and somewhat automated. You don't punch the data, but you still do the same activity every week or month or day or year. And then you figure out, okay, there's a better way to do it. I create a structured repository for all my data. I would do automating the data ingest process and the data processing process. But we don't call that level automation of using a specific ETL tool. Then you're building the manual tasks in a pipeline, which you can hit run on, but it's repetition. It's not automation. So it's just repeating the steps that you told it to do, right? It's still better than the step number 1, but you're 1 level up. And then what normally happens if you want to scale that team, normally what data teams will do is that they will create their own framework, an automation framework. And what is that? Well, that is they build the code to build the code, right? and they have store procedures or PowerShell scripts or Python scripts and config tables, and they sit there punching things into a code they build that can then deploy the real code that will go into the repetitive tasks.
And why isn't that good enough? That's what most people do in their projects, right?
Yeah. So the weakness with that thing is, well, there are a few, but one is your data professionals, what do you want them to do? And you as a data professional, what do you want to do? Well, I can only speak for myself, but I want to give value to the users. I want to get as much throughput of data and data models and data products as I can in the time that I have. I don't want to sit and maintain code that produces my code. That's one thing. The other thing is that if I had created that framework and I left that company, who else knows this framework? I mean, it's custom made, right? Which means that it suits that specific purpose. But it's difficult to have a handover to new people, so it's very personal dependent. And that is why automation software exists, right? So that means that you're kind of outsourcing that framework, you have a graphical user interface, and it's more holistic, and it supports your current needs and your future needs, and you pay for it as a license, right? So it's the most advanced step within automation, is to have it as a software.
And that kind of brings us to this paradox today that having the most advanced solution and approach is what makes your team being most productive and really getting started without having that much knowledge about how to build automation frameworks, because that is provided with the beginning of the projects. So easy to use tools and approach. And let's take a look at the process. So this is a typical process that we see at many clients. Consider this could be one of the larger projects, establishing a new data platform where you typically have a requirements gathering process or step. You have some steps with designing and planning where you really have to think about what technologies do I need? Should I use Snowflake, Databricks, Azure, AWS, and so on? And then going over to implementation, getting people on board, and then doing the go live. So this is a very complex process where lots of decisions have to be done up front.
Yeah, but using automation, you can speed things up, right? Like we talked about the big puzzle, you now only have 2 or 3 decisions to make instead of 10, right? And then on implementation, it will speed up the implementation, which again, using metadata, you will also be able to migrate to production faster. And all of this will then make this faster end to end. And that has another consequence. The wheel, the agile wheel of development, it will spin faster. So it means that you get your data to your users faster, which makes you have new input to actually know better what to build. But you still have to figure that out. That is something you have to talk to your users. And even though the process goes faster, I think you should always have the business user in mind to know you're building the right thing.
And speaking about the business user, I think one challenge, of course, is it is kind of decoupled. It's like doing requirements, then you're getting the data, and that could take like 3, 4, 5 months. And then you're getting back to requirements and seeing things are like off. So the idea here is that using automation, you can come back with the data after a couple of weeks. So the business owners can actually validate their requirements and see if this is really meeting the data they have and seeing, data quality challenges and starting to address those things right away.
And also fail fast, right? The fail fast methodology, you start something, oh, it didn't work, okay. Do I want a data lake? Let's deploy the solution to a data lake. See, does that fit the user's needs? No, okay, let's try Snowflake. Okay, let's try that. And then you can do agile small projects and actually with minimum coding.
So as a summary of what we've seen today is that automation is a means to be able to execute. So it really makes you able to get started quickly and getting the project done. So we really see that is one of the major challenges is really to really get started with the platform and complete it within reasonable time and within reasonable budgets.
Yeah, you have to be bold, right? You have to be bold to just jump in and start instead of sit and plan, right?
Yeah, and you mentioned also, Anja, that some organizations, they tend to change people as well, like in different positions, so that having this delivered quickly is much more easy to then keep the good people in the same role and kind of deliver the projects.
Right. You get fatigue if you experience that the project takes too long to initiate. Then you get tired and you go somewhere else and you find out it's the same place, same story, unless you're working smarter. So let's go back to that metaphor, even though those pink shoes were cool. I think we could all see that a more generic approach and not that specialized can serve more needs, right? More people can do it. More people can go out and take a walk and also run and also hike, or they can go on vacation and also put their kids in it or not, right? So you have a lot more possibilities for a wider range of people, which is our problem today, right?
Right, and this is really shifting a lot of the work from doing data-intensive data wrangling and building automation frameworks on your own over to using the data and doing analytics and building business value together with the business, with the clients and the different divisions.
And it doesn't stop you from driving that race car later, right?
Good point. So it doesn't limit you. So when you're ready, when your team is ready, you can always take the next step. And I think that is one of the promises of automation, that you should be able to swap, the technologies. So when you're ready, you can go up to that kind of race car or those marathon shoes when you're ready. And you can also, like, always evaluate what is the right price performance level for you.
Okay. So let's look at that. The agenda had some bullet points, right? Being pedagogic, we have to go back to the agenda and look at the bullet points. Right.
So these are some of the questions you may ask yourselves or the team, things that data automation typically would help you with. So do you have the documentation in place that is automatically generated? And that is more than just, Confluence document or Word document to Excel. It is really updated with metadata, and it's, tracing data throughout the whole solution, what we call data lineage, complete for all the business users and all the data engineers.
And also, do you have in your data platform the ability to take the solution you have today on-prem or on any type of technology, lift it with the metadata, and install it somewhere else?
Right. And how do you verify data quality? How do you work with tests and test automation and unit testing and so on?
And you also have the issue of performance. That's, I think that's a never-ending issue with more and more data. But then how do you optimize? How do you know where to kind of tune your platform? Automation can also help with that.
Right. And then we mentioned data fabric and, of course, also other different aspects of modeling and organizing your data estates. These rely heavily on metadata, and automation is based on metadata. That's kind of the powering thing underneath. So that's really the basis for doing all the things you need with data mesh and data fabric.
And finally, data catalog. Catalogs are very important. And with an automation tool, you get, like Terje said, all your metadata that can also be used to auto-generate a catalog for that data that you can then enhance with other things.
Right. So if you do not check all the boxes above, then please feel free to reach out to us, Anja and me. We're at the booth C69, just over there. And feel free to ask us anything. We're passionate about this, and thanks a lot for coming to our day here. Okay, thank you.